Natalie, thank you so much for joining me on the Salon Owners Collective podcast. Very pleased to have you here.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Let's start with where are you in the world? What do you do? And how did you come to be doing that?
Okay, I am in Melbourne, Australia, and I wasn't always from Melbourne, originally Sydney. I'm a hairstylist. I am also a salon owner and a newly titled also author. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I have been hairdressing for close to 30 years now. I started hairdressing, and I don't know, maybe because, but both my parents were hairdressers. So I pretty much grew up in a hairdressing salon. And it's been my home since I was 7 years old. I'm one of four. I'm the only one of the siblings that went into hairdressing and have loved it every day I have been in this industry. So yeah, in a nutshell, there you go.
Yeah, born into the industry. I love that.
Yeah.
How long have you had your salon, Natalie?
I was working in the family business until I moved to Melbourne, which was 20 years ago. So I pretty much, I think I was maybe 8 months into living in Melbourne when I ended up opening my own salon. And then I've changed locations once in that time. So yeah, it's probably been almost 20 years, that I've been running my own salon.
I love it. Tell us a little bit about what is a week in the life of Natalie. What does it look like? What does your week typically consist of?
Okay, I'm going to keep it about hairdressing because sometimes I think there should be a camera on me. I swear it would make great TV. There's so much that happens. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning and I try to get to bed by 8:30 at night if I can, but there's always so much to do. So a week for me is pretty much hairdressing right through. We've just come out of lockdown, so it has been very busy at the moment. I've just finished a 21-day straight existence in the salon, but
wow.
Generally it would be Tuesday to Saturday, so with the typical Sunday, Monday out of the salon, but I am pretty much always working in my business and on my business. So the Sunday is probably bit more of a day off, at least half of it, and then I spend the rest preparing my admin list for what I'm going to be doing on my Monday. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I specialize a lot, then we'll delve into that, but with consultations. So I've always got, I've got clients or guests coming in for consultations and separate to also hair appointments. But yeah, pretty much hair and more hair.
Lucky, it's a good thing to be spending time on. Well, let's talk about consultation, because I feel like this is the centerpiece of a client experience. If we don't get this right, it can be a bit of a mess. And so it's probably the most important skill that we hone as stylists and even as business owners. So tell me, in your experience, what do you think, if you had to boil it down to the three most important things that we should be doing or be focusing on when it comes to a consultation with a client, what would you pin those top three things on?
Okay, so look, top things: eye contact, listening, and body language. Consultations is something I have started to really fine tune on and work. And it was something, I don't know why, but I really started to see what was missing in the very early years of my apprenticeship. And just a little bit of background there, and I know I've already done my intro, but I very early on had a clientele that was attracted to my style of hairdressing, but these women who were mostly attracted to what I had to offer were from the 40-50 plus age group. And I have maintained a very high percentage of that age group for pretty much all the years I have been in hairdressing. And this age group I love and find the most interesting, and also they're an age group who want to get their style right. And then through exploring and learning more about consultation, and for me learning about how to read body language, how important eye contact was always taught to me from a very early age and is very powerful, but also listening and when to start talking. So that's a really important thing. But I actually had the ability then to start really fine tuning and designing hairstyles that these women had never had before. So it, in my opinion, all came down to getting this consultation ticked off correctly. So definitely listening, eye contact, body language would be my top three, and then they all have the reasons behind, you know, why that's so powerful.
Well, take us through some of those reasons, because I think it's something, because it's not a tangible say this word or do it like this. I think there's skills that can be missed, or we don't realize that we're not doing them unless we're actively taught, and then it starts to become second nature. Or we have our version of it, but it isn't necessarily an effective version, and then it becomes second nature, and so we don't even know that we're making the same mistake over and over again. So take us through what and how should we be doing this the right way?
And everything you said is just so true, because in my experience and what I've seen, and look, I could always be wrong, and I'm sure there are definitely salons out there who are getting this right. I'm not saying that they're not, but I have not seen consultations taught in hairdressing like we teach hair, how to style hair, how to cut, how to color, and all the things of how to do within the trade. But to me, it doesn't, one doesn't go without the other. So why and how we've missed such an important part of this consultation. And so you're right, it's kind of stumbled upon, but how do we know if we get it right, and then how do we accidentally keep getting it wrong, because there's been nothing to step us through. So so I've kind of, you know, who knows, maybe I'll be able to teach this, but this is great to be able to even talk about it. Where do you want to start? We'll start with eye contact. Let's start there. So with eye contact, you are instantly validating and making someone feel important. So that is a great way to meet your guest when they enter the salon. And that kind of quickly ties into body language. And for me, I'm looking and listening and seeing how that person has come in, because you can tell a lot by just paying attention. So someone might come in a real rush and they're talking really fast, and you can just tell they've had a busy day, and they might even be a little bit agitated or upset or whatever happened, and that's fine, but it's really good to acknowledge that, and then start to just give that person either a couple of minutes, or change how you might have come in and approach that. Sit down, let's get started, what are we going to do today? Because their headspace is so not right where you are, because you're in the salon, you know, you're doing hair, you're in that place. They've come into this space and they've just left something else. So
they need to arrive.
You need to arrive, and you need to just kind of get that welcome in right, set them down, take a breath, and also just read where they're coming from, so that you can actually adjust how you begin that consultation. And then we feed into, so that what have I ticked off? Listening, body language, eye contact. The listening part is where we're going to start. And so this part is important because of all the different reasons you're having this talk today with your guest. Is it a new guest, which is where I really start my, I suppose, training and talking about consultations is very, very important to get it right with a new guest. But I believe a consultation should be given, at least a small consultation, even with a reoccurring guest, so that you're still checking in, not the, you know, are we doing the same as last time kind of conversation. So just hearing about how they've managed their style, or how they managed it in the past. What have they liked about their hair? What have they not liked? What have they felt they struggled with? Let them kind of start the conversation off, so that you know where to come in from. And that's, I think, the most important lead to getting the consultation right. Instead of you coming in from your side, let them begin with what the most important, and you'll be able to pick out from that what is the most important areas that they really need to cover in this service or this appointment in your salon today. I hope I said that okay.
Okay, let's recap that, because it was some really, really important.
I know, I threw everything into the mix right then, didn't I?
Yeah, it was great. So somebody comes in, let's take the rushed person, because you're right, everybody is going to come in slightly differently. And it's our job to suss out where they're at, what mood they're in. We always sat people down in the chair. We had a no mirror area, and we sat them in the chair, and the going to get the coffee or the drink or putting their bag away or that type of thing was the moment to let them
breathe,
take a breathe out, and just leave them for a moment. Because if we arrive and we're straight in, hi, how's it going? Well, how are we doing your hair today? Like, I'm still just, where am I? What day is it? I haven't changed my head. And so I think letting them sit, pause, breathe, lots of us in the hair industry are highly kinesthetic. We're used to touching people, and that works for most people, right? And so even just, we used to do a little press on their shoulders just to kind of plant them in their chair, like your hair. We'd put that under body language a little bit, just connect with the person. Would you agree?
Yep. And that definitely starts the connection of oxytocin, which is really important between, the two of you to have that, because oxytocin then means there's going to be trust. So, and you definitely want trust between, the guest and the stylist.
Tell us about oxytocin.
So I don't know if your listeners know, or if you know as well, but eye contact will actually trigger oxytocin. So, and that's part of the whole being validated and recognized and feeling important. So eye contact is really a big thing. I mean, and I think with the world we're all living in at the moment, and what we've seen of, if you're a parent, when you've had the struggles with kids being online or social media and stresses that can come from that, but we've over probably the last 10 years, we're slowly, as kids coming through, disconnecting a lot. That's more common and familiar than eye contact. And eye contact can become even scarier than what it used to be before we had all that interruption. So it is a scary thing, but it's something I think needs to be taught and practiced, to look at someone in the eye. And that in itself is just so amazing, with just feeling that you've already been heard and no one said anything. It's all about just validation, and I'm here and I'm concentrating on you. So with oxytocin, you want to keep that really prevalent. Absolutely. And there's definitely things that can happen without, I was just going to say, there's things that can happen in the consultation that you may get wrong, that will instantly just drop that oxytocin out the way. And so this is where it can be hit and miss. And part of the journey into where you're going with your service. Sorry, I interrupted you because I could see you coming in there.
I want, if you could explain for our listeners, what is oxytocin and why should we care about it?
So oxytocin is a feel-good hormone. It makes you that's, I mean, when you feel like you're in a safe place, when you feel that you can trust someone, then you are very relaxed. And what happens then is you get healthy blood flow through the body. When oxytocin is restricted, then there's the shallow breathing, the tensing, muscles get tight, and you're almost kind of on edge. And this is something that, I'll be honest, oxytocin is restricted for a lot of people in a lot of salon visits, where they feel they're unheard, or they're seeing something that's happening that they didn't want. And now, the shoulders lift, they're getting agitated. And honestly, I mean, as hairdressers, we do feel that energy. And that can interrupt what happens then for the rest of that hair service, and how well it's going to turn out or not turn out based on that energy. So basically, it's blood will flow and everything will relax when there's healthy oxytocin within the body. And when there's not, then the restriction happens, and then the blood will flow to the most important parts of the body, being your heart and lungs, the parts of the organs that are going to keep you alive, but it was restricted elsewhere. And I talk a lot about oxytocin in we'll talk about it later, but in my book, where how keeping hair healthy and keeping a healthy blood flow through the scalp is really important for those follicles to stay healthy and thrive. But there's one area of the body that is tight all the time, because, and I talk about women because I do women's hair. I have just slowly, it's evolved that I've stopped doing men's hairdressing, but so I do say women a lot. But we carry so much stress, and even though you might feel like you're breathing on it, I've found that a lot of time, if your scalp is just as rock hard, you're just not relaxed. But if you have actually found a way of actually getting full relaxation, everything should move and have the ability to be massaged, and if that makes sense. So I don't know if that's my interpretation of oxytocin. I don't know if you have a better one, probably. I'm not a doctor, but that's what I definitely know about it.
I love that you're bringing awareness to it, and that there's this need for connection, trust, which creates relaxation. And I think, without trust, it's not, there's no relationship without trust, right?
Absolutely.
And the experience then is affected if there's no trust in the relationship. And so some of those things like eye contact, touching, shoulders and whatnot, relaxes the person and builds that trust in the first place.
Yes.
to then be able to have a great and open consultation.
Yes.
To ultimately give the client what it is that she needs. And what occurred to me as you were speaking is sometimes I think, as busy owners or as busy stylists, and we're booked back to back, we forget that the experience for the client is more than just the hair outcome.
Yes. Yes.
Like for some people, this is their one time to really connect with another human being on a deeper level, or physical touch, or to just stop from the busy rat race and pause.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it really is our responsibility to provide that. If we want to get anywhere, if we want to actually have a successful business, then
to get
we need
to the
think
goal
deeper.
of great hair. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to go, I just want to do hair. That's fine, but you're not going to be as successful as someone who's actually prepared to visit the whole person in the chair.
Yes. 100%. Yes. Yeah. Now you're speaking my language.
Well, let's talk a little bit about body language a bit more deeply, because I'm super aware that for some of us stylists and for some clients, we don't necessarily match on how comfortable we are with body language. Some of us are more visual and even auditory and don't love personal touch as much as others, and other people, we just want to hug everybody, and which is great if you get two huggers together, but if you get a hugger and a standoffish person, doesn't always match. I'll tell you a funny story which makes me think of this, and then I would love your thoughts on it, Natalie. In a busy salon environment, when I had my salon, we had a team of 30 in a small space, right? So we are across each other, and when you're mixing or even shampooing, you're quite comfortable to reach over each other, and the things that you wouldn't do at a formal dinner. You don't reach over somebody else's plate to get the gravy, and you say, "Excuse me, and could you pass me the salt?" You have your manners on. That's right. But in the salon, we don't have time for manners for that type of stuff within the team. Clients, yes, but you just reach over and you bump into each other, and it's, I don't know about your salon, but that's what mine was like. So when I bring that home into my kitchen, and I just expect my family to be comfortable with that, because if my husband's cooking, I'll reach over him and I'll just bump him out the way and get something out of the drawer. But he is not like that. He works on a building site, and they have their space, and they work one here and one there, and they don't cross over. They have their own tools, and there's none of this, I'll just lean over you and bump you slightly and not say anything. And he's very much pops out of my way, all a little bit awkwardly. Hopefully he's not listening, by the way. And I think, the rest of the world doesn't operate like this. The rest of the world doesn't feel as comfortable as I do, or the culture that I created, to be so in each other's physical space.
Yeah.
And so we forget that when clients are in our chair, right?
Yeah.
We need to check.
Yes, yes. And so look, if I think back to when, I suppose when there was the biggest amount of staff that I worked with and around, was when I was working in the business with my parents. And it wasn't 30, but it was, I think it was 15 staff was the biggest they had, which is still, pretty up there. And I get what you mean. So as a team, as a salon team, you become family. So, and you see each other more than you probably see your own actual family, because you're doing the main parts of the day and all those hours together. So I get that you do feel kind of comfortable to do that, and no one's really, offended. But when it came to, so you and I'm your husband, okay? So this is great. I can give you the breakdown. So I sometimes just want to grab something, but if I bring it back to a family thing, I would probably feel okay to reach across, and my husband's very much like you are, like very, happy to invade someone's personal space. But in the salon, and when we're involving our guest as well, for that kind of thing, so for someone of your touchy-feely kind of feeling really comfortable that way, then I suppose I would have trained the staff to always include the guest as part of what this is, not just as though they're forgotten and we're just all communicating amongst ourselves. So it would be a gentle touch on the shoulder. Excuse me a minute, I just got to reach for this. And so you almost ask for permission to invade that space, and you still do, as opposed to expecting everyone to like, okay, you can go now, stand back and get through. So it's basic. It just comes down to consultation, but communication. And always includes the guest. So the one thing that happens the most in salon is the interruption, right? When you've got to ask a question, or something's happening at the basin with another guest you've got, and maybe the younger stylist just needs to check in and you're finishing off someone, and they need to ask you a question. So it will just be, never just jump in, because even that to me is invading personal space. You've just taken their airspace or their hearing space, whatever it was. And they may have been in a conversation with that guest. So it would be simply, the hand then touches the shoulder of the guest. So you acknowledge, that's an acknowledgement. That usually changes the scene. So then the person who's doing, let's say they're blow drying, will stop and look. And so we've arrived. There's 3 people here. And then there's a chance to say, I just need to ask a question. I'm really sorry to interrupt. And then you ask your question and off they go. And just that simple thing is done very quickly. It's not rude. And the client feels, or the guest feels like they have been, again, made
Seen
important. They're part. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that kind of was where you're going, but that's how I kind of break that down if I was to put it into a salon situation.
Yeah, for sure. And we very much had that culture too. You're on stage. When you're on the floor, you're on stage.
Yeah.
And you act a certain way. And in the background, we can all bump into each other. That's fine.
Yeah.
But really reading the person that you have in front of you, because some people want to hug you and will touch you on your leg or your shoulder back. And other people, you might touch their shoulder and you can feel them flinch straight away. And it's like, okay, no touching your shoulder, to excuse myself. So I think, we spend a lot of time about really talking about body language and shadowing. Didn't you call it shadowing at the time? I forget what you called it now, but like, mimicking people's behavior. So we're matching them.
Yeah. And look, to a degree, I think that is good. But I also feel like if someone comes in and we were talking about like the rushed person, then you don't want to mimic that. You want to actually help calm them down. So if I've got someone who's come in, and let's assume, I like to give the story a bit more information. So let's assume this is a new guest, and I'm really needing to tap in to who this person is and how I'm going to help them best with their style. So I'll sit them down. Now this is brilliant. You had a space that didn't have mirrors. What I do is I sit kind of in front but beside my guest, so that I'm not looking at her through the mirror. And that way, this is something else I found really gives me a lot of information. So I basically give her the option to either use the mirror when she's talking to me about her hair, or turn and face me. And I find it really interesting. And this is not a hard and fast rule, but it's kind of a general assumption I've come to, or observation I've noticed is probably a better word to say, is that the younger guests, let's say 30 down, so I'm sitting to the side, I'm not talking to them through the mirror, will talk to me about their hair while they always look at themselves in the mirror. But when you're talking to someone who's like 40 up or 50 up, they'll generally prefer that they turn and actually talk to me and we really connect. And I love that. So that already tells me a little bit, but sometimes they might come back and forth because I'll ask questions, but I just watch how they move. At what point do they feel comfortable to look at themselves, and at what part of the conversation do they prefer not to? And that is like so powerful. Extending on body language when I'm talking to them and asking them to kickstart what they'd like to tell me about their hair today. I also watch how they touch their hair when they're talking to me, or how they actually sit in the chair. Some people are kind of edging forward and they're really looking, or I've even had the kind of more nervy, edgy person who's a bit, basically nervous and anxious, kind of feel like, because I'm giving them that space, they're really uncomfortable with that, because they're almost like, why aren't you touching my hair yet? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you? And they'll kind of throw their head into my face and like, aren't you going to touch it? Aren't you going to touch it? And then I kind of feel like, okay, with that kind of energy, I actually pull things back even more, and I slow my talking down even more. And I really try to get them comfortable. So that all comes into that whole body language and where I go with it. Yeah. They're the do's anyway. They're the positive parts of it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about some don'ts. What are some things that we can really try and remember not to do?
All right. Now I feel a little bit, and we're all like super respectful here. It's everyone's interpretation and what's worked. But coming back to that whole touching and not touching, and it is great to have that connection. And most hairdressers I know are very more touchy and put their hands on. And some do it because they feel they have to, but might not be. So one of the things I find, and I'll tell you, I just wanted to give you a bit of background as to why I feel so passionate about my list of don'ts, is that every time I have my hair done, colored or cut, I go to a new salon, a different salon that I didn't go to before, and see someone I haven't seen before, and it scares the bejesus out of me. I swear.
You're very brave.
I am so anxious because I've had the bad experiences. I've had the okay experiences, and I've had very few where I just say I have been totally overwhelmed. There might have been parts of it that were, but I'm like really critiquing, by the way. And one other important thing is I never tell them I'm a hairdresser. So I'm just basically observing. I am presenting myself as a client and going through motions. And this, I think, is so powerful because it actually helps me be a better hairdresser, to never forget what it feels like to sit in that chair. And I would challenge every hairdresser to do it. Not go somewhere just for a blow dry. That's too safe. Actually go for a full haircut or a full color, something a bit and feel the whole experience and pay for the whole experience to really get an understanding of what your guest feels when they come in. So coming back to the don'ts, one thing when I've gone to salons that is a pet hate, and possibly because I am less of a touchy-feely kind of person, is when I am touched straight away. I actually feel like I've been, invaded my space completely. I don't know this person yet. They haven't actually properly introduced themselves to me yet, and yet they're touching me. And the head, I believe, is one of the most protected parts of our body. And it means a lot, and our hair does. It's full of all of our emotions, everything, and it's a personal space. So yes, even though we're in a salon and this is going to be a part of our body that does get styled and touched, it's still something I believe there should be at least a meet and greet and permission before you touch your guest. And I always ask for permission before I start having a feel through the hair. But that part is done after I've started the consultation and given them time to talk to me about their hair, because I've had time to observe how they touch their hair rather than me coming in there, shaking it all around.
That. Yeah.
What are we going to do today? All of this. It is, that in itself is very rushed. And if I dare say, intimidating. So depending, and if you haven't yet got to know even a little bit about the guest who's sitting in your chair, you may be doing everything she hates, and that is going to be how she presents the whole way through, and you've never had a chance to tap in and really fine tune and work out what style is going to work for who she is, maybe her lifestyle, her personality. I go right into I go quite deep in my consultations, but it doesn't take forever, because a lot of those three things I mentioned to you are visual and listening, and all happen very quickly. But it's being stepped through it to know what you're looking at and understand what you just saw walk in the door. And that's information that a lot of people have just never understood was information in itself. So touching too early, to me,
love that.
Agree.
And asking permission first.
Absolutely.
Because I see that too. Too many people walk straight behind the client, hands in here, through the mirror. So sit down, eye contact, ask about the hair before you touch. Don't touch.
And you just said it there too. Don't talk through the mirror. It's very disconnecting, not connecting. Yeah. Later, okay, but you've already met. So it's already changed the table, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Great. Any other definitely don'ts?
Look, I'm trying to keep them short. I feel like I'm always kind of learning and trying to even better my skills all the time. I don't ever feel like I've arrived and I know it all. Absolutely not. But I think now more than ever, particularly coming out of, we're now living with COVID and what this means for all of us, keeping the conversation always about the hair, it's not that hard. I feel like after or during consultation, once the stylist feels they may have got what they need to know and we've decided on tick the box on what services we're doing and all the rest of it, that it can quickly become a conversation where either the stylist is talking about their experience of what they're doing. I really feel like keeping it always about the hair. I mean, conversation can be led by your guests and go off here and there, but if you always keep it back to what we're doing, and that means, there's never not time to be talking about what products could be used. If you're really engaged in that guest all the way from start to finish, there's almost not enough time to fill her in on everything she could know or know more of to help better her style. So I feel like that's where maybe possibly when you delve into products, talking about product or talking about how to style or how she's going to now manage this at home, it's all thrown in at the end and really rushed. But yet you have this whole appointment to be delivering this ongoing consultation with your guests. So I would say keep it about what we're doing, and it also just keeps, I think, the whole staff focused all of the time. And yeah, that would be another tip.
I really love that. We had an 80-20 rule. It had to 80% to be about the client, but you're actually taking it the next step. It needs to be all about the hair. Yes. What I love about that is, apart from the obvious results-driven reasons, like actually there's no reason for them not to know how to do things, how to style it, how to do it at home, what you're doing next, and peppering in all of the, the next 12 months journey, which is a great retention strategy. But we don't go to the doctor and find out what's happening in the doctor's life and what movie they went to and what their kids are doing. The doctor is focused on your health. And so really they're coming to
us
have a hair doctor.
Hair guidance.
Hair. Yes. Like this is the thing that frames their face.
And that's even what we're in the business of. Yeah.
That's right. And even for the beauty industry, it's the same. Keep it on the skin, keep it on the problems and the opportunities that we have to educate our people. And then the relationship doesn't get complicated.
That's it. You don't start tapping into things that really probably should never have been a topic. And then you actually have eliminated stress and anxiety, not just for your guests, but for you as well, because it always stayed about what we're doing. And that's what we're there to do.
I think sometimes, we maybe are known this industry for being a little bit on the counseling side of things, or either for talking too much about ourselves or for being the counselor. But in fact, we could leave at the end of the day after seeing 7-10 guests in a day, and we are exhausted.
Yes.
We just take it all on and in. Whereas actually what you're saying is we don't need to do that. Just be completely professional and provide an exceptional service. And that means just talking about our profession, their hair.
And in fact, that in itself is a great counseling session, because they have probably for the first time in a long time had a mind that wasn't on everything else, because at some point in that service, it may have come back and they're thinking about where they're going to go next or what their problems are. And I'm not saying that people won't just, they feel safe and they're relaxed, they're going to talk. That's fine. But it only ever has to be a little snippet. And then you just casually then bring it back to, what I was just thinking, you mentioned that your hair was feeling a little dry, and, and this could be while you're working or foiling away, and you're going, your hair texture would really thrive. And you're just talking. And then they're like, what were you talking about before? Can I see that product? And it's just so easy to keep it about hair. And then if they choose to come back to what they're talking about, but you'll find that once that hasn't kind of been given any energy to keep going, or if it was something upsetting or something got them razzled up, you'll see that energy change and they lift again. You think, oh, just did all that work getting them nice and where we want them, and now it's coming back up and down. It just doesn't happen. I just feel like we have, without knowing it, complicated what we do, and we are exhausted, and it just doesn't have to be that way. It can be so much more simple. And then you leave tired but very fulfilled, that you had a great day and you possibly learnt more about a product yourself that you thought you haven't used a lot on most of your clientele, but that day this person's hair really needed this other product, and it's just
I feel like
I could keep going, but I'll
for sure. I feel like that's a win-win formula, because what I've learned about being a great salesperson is that we don't need to be salesy for sales sake, but when people buy our recommendations and the things that we've talked about, they're really happy because they get the hair that they want. They look how they want over the next 6 weeks. They look good at home. They feel good when they leave the salon. They have a great experience. And the net result is that because they had the toner, or they bought the hair care for home, or they didn't have just half a head, they had a full head. So actually when they wear their hair up, they don't have this band underneath or whatever it is. And if the client is happy, she's happy. And then as a result, the scorecard is that we have good sales. And so we're happy for the work and the effort that we put in. We're well rewarded. So we're happy. So actually, it's a win-win scenario.
100%. 100%.
All right. I think that's amazing. All right. You're a business owner. I would love for you, like being in business is hard. It's a lot of energy and it's exhausting. But so what is a quote or a mantra or something that keeps you focused as a business owner?
Oh, you know what? Every year I start my, so when I get to, I don't know if it's just before New Year's or from New Year, I do end up with like a week off around there. And I take my diary with me and I just sit down and I just love this time. I know it's a bit weird and crazy, but I love being organized. I really, really do. And I just come up with, or somehow a quote will find me, and that will be my quote for the year. And now I've said that out loud, I don't know if I started this year off with a quote. And if that's the case, it's the first year I didn't. But last year it was challenge equals change. And I think that really was true to me because of what we all experienced in the beginning of 2020. And I don't know that I felt a year that had so much change and challenge. And I went as far as to actually have it engraved on a locket that I'm not wearing it now, but it was just like, that is really true to me. So I suppose that could be one. I tend to like to use a lot of different ones, but other quotes I love is that, confidence starts from the hair down. That's something that I feel is true, because when you get all the things I'm passionate about, which is consultation right, and really aligning the right hairstyle for that person, and they're loving it and they can manage it at home effortlessly. We all know when we like our hair, don't we we're just a better person that day, right? We're nicer to everyone. You're overly nice to everyone, because when you love your hair, you're just really nice that day.
You can conquer the world.
You can conquer everything. So the confidence is just glowing, and it's pretty powerful what, as hairdressers, we can do that for people. Confidence starts from the hair down.
I love it. All right, let's talk about your book a little bit. The Love Your Hair book. Tell us what inspired you to write it, and what is the key reason that we need to buy it?
Okay. So honestly, I wrote it with the guest in mind, and it was probably 2019. I started deciding that I wanted to reach more people with my consultations. I felt it was one part of what we do in hairdressing that was really kind of missing. And it is hard I've evolved over these, 30 years of fine tuning it. I've learned a lot more about psychology and reading body language. That stuff does interest me, and it's been great that it does, because I've been able to pull it together and really put almost like a system together that works for great consultations. And when I see someone for the first time in my salon, I see them for a consultation, and we do not follow through with a hair appointment that same day. So I separate it completely. That works for me, and it gives me time to get to meet that person and find out what we're going to do. But I have had over all the years like feedback that, that was great. I've never had that time spent and really, tapping into what my hair can do, or what's going to suit me, my face shape, my body shape, what have you. And so writing the book was a way of also reaching more people. So I did actually start saying I actually developed an online consultation, which means I can do consultations online to anyone in the world. They don't have to be only because they can come to see me in Melbourne. So my point was I was trying to reach more people and offer this. And then the book was another way of bridging that gap between hairdresser and guest, to basically empower both. If the guest comes in and is a little bit more aligned with where they want to go, then let's say the stylist who's maybe not so confident or sure about how to pull off a really great consultation, maybe because they're still new in the industry or they're just not being trained that way. If the guest is a lot more informed and already in that right place, then that is only going to benefit the stylist. And then the stylist is going to start talking already without having to feed through all the things that she might have wanted. They're going to start where they need to start. And so basically I see it as a way of getting even better, ticking the box on both sides. The guest is going to be extra happy, and the stylist is going to be thrilled that they were able to offer exactly what she was after or he was after. So it was just a way of being able to get out and reach more people. Having said that, there's a little bit of everything in there. There's a little bit about how our hair changes as we age, what certain age groups are looking for when they're trying to design what it is they're looking for in a style. So from your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way to 70s, women who are 70 want to look hot too. And I've got a handful of women who are in their 70s and they look hot. They're sporting that maybe silver or white hair, but it looks amazing and it's still styles that really aligns for them. So I have had so I've had hairdressers also read the book, and have at this point now I've had some beautiful feedback from both guests or followers or people who are not hairdressers, and then from the hairdressing industry, which was kind of, I suppose, where my nerves were like, how you always wonder when you put a book out there how you're really putting yourself out there. But what has been super humbling is that my technique into consultations and different techniques I use depending on that personality. I have different things I'll pull in. I don't use the same consultation totally for every person, but I have different techniques for the really nervy person or the busy mind, and how to help them steady that and really get them focused on where they're going. Some people who are completely don't know what they want, but may know everything they don't want, but then feel like they don't even know that. I've got techniques for that. So I actually take the guests through these steps, but you could easily be a stylist or a new stylist and use this as a way of getting more educated on how to go about doing a really intentional consultation. And there's plus a lot of little other tips about hair as well that are beneficial.
I love that you're
a copy.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I love that you're educating you're kind of essentially educating the client before they get to the meet to
Yes.
the appointment.
Yes.
And that's half the barrier, because often the client doesn't know what she needs or doesn't know how to articulate the problems or the challenges or the wants that she has. And so you're getting a really nice meeting of the minds, and so they can get to a resolution faster. Yes. Love and adore that. All right, Natalie, where can we find you and your book? What are your socials and your dubs?
Okay, well, Retreat Hair is the name of my salon. Very easy, www.retreathair.com.au, because we're in Australia. And then my Instagram, and I think Instagram and Facebook are pretty well connected these days. So if I give you my Instagram, that would be @retreat_hair. And basically everything is linked. So from my link tree, I've got my YouTube channel, I've got my book, I've got my blogs. I write a lot of blogs about things that come up in the salon, questions I've had over the years that I think is really interesting information to share. So yeah, I've got quite a library that you can go through and just find, a topic of interest. So everything really is navigated beautifully from the website, and or right. Instagram seems to be a great landing page that I use a lot.
I shall put all of those links on the show notes of this episode. So if you're wanting to find Natalie, and I know you will, and you'll stalk her. Thank you so much for the time that you've invested
fun.
with
Thank
us
you
today.
for having me. Yeah, that was great.
Really
I got a lot out of that too. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Larissa.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Mwah.